Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a former San Diego police officer breaks down in court as he's sentenced to jail for illegal actions against women while on the job. Local law enforcement getting ready to collect old expired prescriptions in tomorrow's Drug Take-Back Day. You might be surprised to learn how long some folks are holding on to their old medications. And new rules about groundwater are causing worries for California farmers. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. A former San Diego police officer has been sentenced to a year in jail and 3 years probation for illegally detaining women and groping them while on duty. Christopher Hayes put his head down and wept as the judge announced the sentence. Last month, he pleaded guilty to false imprisonment and misdemeanor assault and battery under color of authority. Before reading the sentence today, the judge heard from 2 of Hayes' 4 victims. He also heard from the former officer's wife, Erica.
There are things I may never know the answer to, but what I do know is my husband would not deliberately hurt others. He is the hardest worker I have ever met, which is something I have always admired about him. There has not been a single day throughout this experience that he did not either go to work or school to make sure he could provide for us and secure a future. He has been there to physically pull me out of bed when I didn't want to face another day of this.
Hayes told the judge he's sorry for any pain he caused to the victims and his family, but the judge says he's concerned because after pleading guilty last month, Hayes told a probation officer he didn't do anything wrong. He will return to court next week to begin his sentence. Legal actions being threatened against Lyft and Uber by the district attorneys in Los Angeles and San Francisco. The DAs there say the ride-sharing companies need to change their practices for screening drivers and charging customers. They say the companies are making false claims about screening out drivers with criminal records. The companies are also facing legal challenges in several other states. A tough day for passengers trying to get to Chicago's O'Hare Airport, all because of a fire at an air traffic control facility in Illinois. A contract employee is suspected of setting the fire, but terrorism has been ruled out. The incident caused a wave of flight delays and cancellations across the U.S., including 10 flights at San Diego International Airport. Folks catching or meeting a flight are advised to check in with their airline. County Medical Examiner says the leading cause of accidental death in San Diego remains prescription drugs, primarily caused by people who overdose on pain medication. Tomorrow, more than 40 locations across the county will be collecting old, expired prescriptions. This is just 10 pounds. You guys took back 10,000 pounds in April alone. It's amazing the stuff that's out there in people's homes and medicine cabinets, says DEA Special Agent Tom Lennox.
Some of this stuff is probably running
From the 1930s?
30s, 40s. It's quite a few years old.
More like several decades old. Lennox is talking about the success of the prescription drug take-back program in San Diego and Imperial counties. It started in 2009 with only 6 drop-off sites. Now more than 40 sites will be open on Saturday from 10 to 2.
This has been a great program in San Diego County. Just through these take-back events alone, we've brought back over 33 tons of medication over the last 3.5 to 4 years.
It's estimated 40 people die every day due to the misuse or abuse of these drugs. The public has been encouraged to drop them off at sheriff stations around the county, since flushing or throwing them in the trash can contaminate the water supply or end up in the wrong hands. Starting October 8th, hospital clinics with on-site pharmacies will be able to collect unused drugs anytime.
And we also provide an option for long-term care facilities, skilled nursing facilities, to partner so they also have a way of disposing of the drugs in their facility.
There's a list of drop-off locations online at dea.gov. All of the unused drugs are incinerated or burned. The DEA has no plans for any more take-back programs after tomorrow, simply because the new regulations opening up more options next month. Next week, San Diego City Council will look at a computer software system designed to better track services for the homeless. That software will help coordinate the services of three major agencies: Father Joe's Villages, Veterans Village of San Diego, and Episcopal Community Services. The Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development requires tracking software for funding purposes. There's new legislation to support foster youth when they go to college. Amitha Sharma is here looking into that with her guests.
When foster children turn 18 and leave the state's foster care system, they do so with little more than a bag of clothes. Only 3% go on to college. New legislation awaiting Governor Jerry Brown's signature offers help to foster kids in college. Joining me to talk about the bill and the hurdles foster youth face in earning a college degree are Laura O'Cons, co-founder of Foster Youth Investment Coalition, and Sade Burrell, a member of the same group and a former foster child herself. Laura, tell me how the new legislation will help children or former foster kids stay in college.
So the new legislation, working with Senator Norma Torres, we have designed the Senate Bill 1252 to support former foster youth who are involved with the Transitional Housing Placement Program. And specifically, it's going to support those former foster youth who are involved in that housing program to give them one more year of housing support if they're enrolled in higher education, in a higher education program.
And how big of an impact do you expect that to have?
We expect it to have a huge impact. I mean, imagine you're on your way finishing college, and you have a steady lifestyle and striving to finish that goal. And then all of a sudden, because you age out of the system, it's just taken away from you. And those individuals who are at that point to finish their degree just need that little more support to really graduate and to attain their goals to get that college degree. So I feel that it will make a huge impact on those individuals who have worked so hard to get to that point.
Sade, you're a former foster child yourself. Now you're a graduate student at USC School of Social Work. What hurdles did you face in getting there?
There are a few hurdles that I faced. I think one of the biggest one, which is why I came aboard with Laura and the SB. I messed up. Okay.
1252?
1252 is because of the support that they give the students, which is basically allowing them to have a home to stay in while they're going to college. And that was the biggest hurdle that I faced, being able to study in a library or at home and having those late nights. I didn't really have a home setting to go to. So that was a huge hurdle for me, which is why I'm very involved with this. Yeah.
So helping these former foster students stay in college by giving them housing is one thing, but getting them there seems to be quite another challenge. I mean, foster kids make up 0.3% of the state's population, and yet they account for about 40% of the people in homeless shelters. What else is needed to help these former foster kids get to college?
A huge support system is needed. Mentors throughout the community. This is a community effort that needs to take place, which is why we're bringing this to the state, because we're all responsible, despite whether they're related to us or not. That was another hurdle that I faced, is having to build my own support system. This THP Plus programs that we're asking for allows them to build these other programs. I'm so nervous, I'm so sorry. Allows them to build the support systems that they need while in environment that promotes higher education.
So Laura, SB 1252 started off as a class project. Tell me about that.
My background is being a community organizer and advocate, specifically working with at-risk youth. And I wanted to learn how exactly to better develop my skills. So I came here I enrolled at the University of San Diego in the Nonprofit Leadership and Management program. And through research, a team and I found that one of the populations here in the state of California who needed most of our support was were those in the foster youth system. And through that came the creation of the Foster Youth Investment Coalition, where we proposed a bill to 2 different legislators up in Sacramento, and it was authored by Senator Norma Torres.
And what happens, I mean, the governor has until Tuesday to sign this, or midnight Monday. What happens if he doesn't sign it?
If he doesn't sign it, unfortunately, foster youth are going to be in the same detrimental situation that they're in right now, where they don't have a proper support system to help them graduate from college and to attain those degrees. And, that has many negative, can have many negative implications where homelessness rates, incarceration rates for foster youth will stay the same or possibly increase, where if this bill were passed, homelessness and incarceration rates, could be lessened, could be decreased, and even more so, those former foster youth who attain a college degree would be able to attain those jobs that are meaningful, contribute positively to the California economy, but more importantly, they would be able to lead sustainable lives for themselves as well as for their future families.
And we've got to close it there. Laura, Sade, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Parts of Northern California could get some rain this weekend, especially in the Shasta County and the foothills around Sacramento. Redding and Red Bluff have already exceeded rainfall records for this time of year, and two of the state's main reservoirs are in those areas. But forecasters say chances of drought relief this winter are not looking good.
We're not seeing a strong El Nino signal. Therefore, there's not a strong correlation of whether or not we'll get above normal precipitation or below normal, or it could just be normal this winter. So we're still trying to figure out exactly what this winter season will look like.
Well, we need at least 2 months of heavy above normal rainfall to end the drought. Farmers are drilling more wells and extracting more groundwater to irrigate their crops, but experts say the increased pumping is causing land to sink and depleting underground water supplies. The AP's Terry Shea looks at the problem and the new rules about to go into effect.
These are busy days for California well drillers. A record drought has sharply reduced water supplies to farms, so farmers are spending millions of dollars to drill new wells to extract the water beneath their land.
The amount of work being done in our industry is probably at one of the peak levels in recent history.
Groundwater has helped farmers keep growing crops during one of the worst droughts in California history. But experts say the increased pumping is depleting underground water supplies at an alarming rate.
So because the water levels have reached historic lows, a lot of wells are going dry in the area. They're having to drill a lot more wells to deeper depths in order to get the water they need to irrigate the crops.
The expanded pumping is also causing land to sink, a process known as subsidence.
The land surface was right here sometime near the beginning of the summer.
Hydrologists have been measuring subsidence throughout the Central Valley, home to California's vast agriculture industry.
Subsidence this summer is at a rate that we haven't seen since the 50s and 60s. So infrastructure and canals are particularly sensitive infrastructure to subsidence, get impacted, get damaged.
Unlike most states, California has allowed landowners to pump as much groundwater as they want, but that's about to change. Governor Jerry Brown has signed legislation that will for the first time regulate groundwater, and farmers aren't happy.
What we're seeing by the state is a massive grab on our groundwater. There's the distinct possibility it will drive people out of business, but it's absolutely going to hurt the bottom line.
Farmers will have some time to adjust. In most areas, the regulations won't take effect for several years. Terry Shea, Associated Press, Modesto, California.
And since we're on the subject of farming, California's rice harvest is just getting underway. Farmers say they didn't plant 25% of their fields because of the drought, but they're expecting a good year for what they did plant, and they're not expecting any dramatic price increases at the grocery store for us. What they are concerned about is the rice straw left after the harvest. It's food for millions of birds. Normally, about 300,000 acres of rice fields are available as habitat, but this year it will be only about 50,000. Biologists say it can be a worry because when birds gather in one place instead of spreading out, there's more potential for disease. Of course, this is apple season up in Julian in the East County. Tune in to Morning Edition on KPBS Radio on Monday to hear how the drought is affecting this year's apple crop.
I'm Gwen Eiffel. On the next News Hour, Margaret Warner talks with Ukraine's Prime Minister, plus Shields and Brooks on the week's news. That's Friday on the PBS News Hour.
End-of-life care is wrought with difficult questions. When to hope for a miracle, when to let go, and how to strike a balance between the two while still preserving dignity. Reporter Joanne Farian of iNewsSource, a KPBS partner, recently spent time at subacute units where people with brain injuries or progressive illnesses are kept alive through artificial means. She joins me now. Joanne, what are subacute units and how do people end up there?
Well, there's special units in nursing homes throughout California. It's a designation. It demands a certain per diem rate, up to $900 a day. And these units are meant for people who need constant care and need life support just to live. The typical scenario is somebody has a stroke or an accident, a severe brain injury. They can no longer speak, breathe on their own, eat. They typically have a feeding tube and a breathing tube in their throat.
What hope do they have of recovery?
We spent a lot of time on one subacute unit on Coronado Island. It's one of the largest in the state. In that particular scenario, virtually everyone there has very little hope of ever getting better. That basically this is going to be their life for the rest of their lives in a bed, in a nursing home, on life support.
You write about a woman named Rafaela Simmons. What is her story?
Well, she is a 55-year-old woman. She's been married for 23 years to her husband, Steve. They were in an accident more than 4 years ago, and she was severely brain injured. Steve was given a choice in the ICU. Should we let Rafaela go, or should we put in a breathing tube and a feeding tube and basically hope for the best? We call our series An Impossible Choice because, as you could imagine, anyone given that choice, let somebody die or let them live in this way, it's a pretty tough decision to make.
And what was her husband told specifically about her chances of coming back, of recovering fully?
Well, he was probably somewhat of a typical case. He had a hospital team sit down with him, and they did say, look, she has virtually no chance of getting better, so we can offer hospice, we can let her go. But a neurologist who had been consulting on the case said to him, you know what, though? She's a fighter. We can wait and see. And that gave Steve just enough hope to make a different decision.
Now, you described the care as being quite expensive. Who's paying for this?
State of California pays for all of this care through Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal is the state's program for the poor and disabled. Because this care is so expensive, up to $900, even $1,000 a day, virtually no one can afford this, right? No family could afford this. So to be eligible for Medi-Cal, you have to show that you only have so much money. So people do what's called the Medi-Cal spend down. Families do this, that you basically deplete your savings to the point that Medi-Cal, you're now eligible to receive Medi-Cal. So that's why the government ends up paying.
So you state in your piece that the default of the system is to keep people alive at all costs. Explain that.
Well, on a number of levels. I want to refer to the Institute of Medicine report that came out earlier this month. It's a major national report that basically addressed end of life. And it said, look, we don't talk about death and dying. We don't talk about the choices that we're going to make at the end of our lives. And they talked a lot about bringing back the so-called death panels. Now, that was a political term.
Politically
charged term for basically conversations that doctors would have with their patients about the choices they wanted to make at the end of their lives. Right now, what the system does, the medical system, is they're going to keep you alive unless you have an advance directive, unless a family member steps in and says, don't do this. It's lawsuits, it's a lack of conversation. It's also a profit motive in terms of procedures and hospitalizations pay doctors and hospitals, whereas letting someone go, there's no money in that.
So is this not a source of frustration for doctors?
The doctors we spoke to, yes, they want a conversation to happen. They want, many doctors feel like they get caught up in this system, and there were many doctors who spoke to me throughout all of my reporting. They want this story told.
And there's no incentive for them to tell this story.
Well, I think part of it is the units that we went into, what was so shocking is that so few people in the medical profession actually even knew that they existed. So imagine this, there's a nursing home, and you would have like a regular nursing home population, a lot of elderly people. But then there are these specific sections within a nursing home where the people aren't necessarily old. In fact, there are 14 of these units just for children in the state of California. So these are entire units in nursing homes devoted to people who, at whatever age, maybe they were 30 or 40 or 50, had this sudden trauma and are now on life support. That's how they're existing. They're not breathing on their own, they're not eating, they're not moving. Shockingly, very few people, even in the medical profession, know that these units exist.
And we are looking forward to your series. Thank you so much, Joanne. iNewsSource's special report, An Impossible Choice, airs Monday, September 29th on KPBS Evening Edition. You can also find the full report at iNewsSource.org next week.
Do we need a bigger convention center or don't we? San Diego is facing big fines for ignoring stormwater runoff, and cab companies are crying foul about a new proposal to open up the taxi market. I'm Mark Sauer. Join us for the KPBS Roundtable Sunday morning at 11.
Well, this may come as sad news for movie lovers. San Diego's Kensington Video is closing down early next year. It's been in business for 32 years, first renting video cassettes and moving on to DVDs. It's known for a collection of hard-to-find films. The owner tells UT San Diego he's been facing more competition from online sites like Netflix, and they're just not renting enough movies to stay in business. Two San Diego artists, one a sculptor from Iran, the other a photographer from Iowa, have come together to create a visually compelling exhibit of their work in La Jolla. Reporter Michael Bovey brings us the story.
Art to me is not some luxury thing or something we can purchase once in a while, touch it and be happy.
Perched in the hills above Windansea Beach is a modern white house surrounded by a vibrant forest of art. It's a home and an ever-changing museum created by owner and sculpture designer Nasser Piristay.
If we are surrounded with the art, with the color, form, shape, shadows, our life gets tastier, better. And I built this house for the purpose of art. My gate is a sculpture. My rails are a sculpture. So we are using them every day. So it's a functional sculpture. That wall is 54 feet, 7 horses. It's called Going East. It's a divider between me and my neighbor, but I cannot believe it just should sit there without saying something.
One person drawn in by Piristay's art, rather than being walled out, was photographer John Humphrey. The sculpture became a bridge that connected the two men.
I was jogging up Nautilus. I saw this beautiful white house. Looked through the gate, and Nasser was grinding away. I see all the sculptures. He stopped for a few seconds, and I yelled at him, "Is this your work?" He said, "Yes, come on in." That was the beginning.
We spoke for a long time, but I was interested to see his photos, and I looked at some of his work, and then the conversation came, you know, he wants to step up differently than what he was doing.
I was interested in getting images within the sculpture itself because of the way the light, the glass, the beautiful patina of the sculpture plays with the sun. So I saw some things going on within the sculpture besides the beautiful totality of the sculpture.
Piristay and Humphrey began meeting weekly to discuss Humphrey's evolving photographs.
Sometimes we meet for 2-3 minutes, other times a half hour. But it was very important for me because I would go do more work.
Every time he has photos, he brings it. We'll sit down and we analyze it inch by inch, step by step.
And when I'm looking at his sculptures, things jump out. I move in closer to kind of frame it. I might see lines, light, shadows, and then when I'm back at my computer, it's like I have paintbrushes with the sliders to play around with colors, tone, hue. But I can do that at my leisure and say, oh, I like that. No, I don't like that. Maybe I want more blue here. This looks good. I think I'll stop here.
The pair created a show that highlights Piristay's sculptures with Humphrey's photographs. It's an expression of a relationship that started out as teacher and student, but has blossomed into a professional collaboration.
My work evolved because I had this wonderful artist with all this experience to show my work to. What other person would I want to look at this abstract painting-like photography than Nasser, who teaches painting?
Yeah, I love the way you run the color. To me, his photos has his own signature. You can see it's magnificent. It's just beautiful. And so far, it's a year later. And in this exhibit, we're going to have his work here. I'm very excited.
Reporter Michael Bovey says the exhibit Dimensions of Color runs this Saturday and Sunday on Avenida Mañana in La Jolla. To see the art in the exhibit, go to kpbs.org. We've got a nice-looking weekend ahead for most of San Diego. The coast may get a bit of drizzle late tonight and early tomorrow morning. Daytime temperatures along the beaches, mid-70s. There may be some fog for the inland valleys, upper 70s to low 80s there this weekend. There's a wind advisory up for the mountains until early Sunday morning. Might see some rain there as well tomorrow. Also a wind advisory in the mountain, or rather the deserts. Chance of showers tonight, clearing for the rest of the weekend with temperatures in the more comfortable 90s. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night and a good weekend.